You're listening to This Week in America with Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast. This Week in America. Great to have you with us on the program today. All the information on the program at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Legacy is the story of mankind's sojourns through history, describing one man's incredible journey through several lifetimes as far back as 1,000,000 years, his blunders, his triumphs, and the many worlds and places where those experiences took place. 5 episodes in Legacy, a 1,000,000-year-old romance, space battles, intrigue, interdimensional scientific and spiritual principles of life, today's false religious beliefs, and other secrets exposed in detail, described as a must-read for every truth seeker, a novel 30 years in the making. The Legacy series author is Robert Maxxim, and it's his incredible journey through several lifetimes as far back as 1,000,000 years. As a child, Robert experienced several sleep-time visits to other worlds and witnessed countless alien craft. These experiences continue to date in both the wake and sleep states. Robert has spent over 40 years studying science, religion, and the science of life. He lives and works in Illinois, the field of information technology, and he's back with us on This Week in America. Robert Maxxim, author of the critically acclaimed Legacy series, back on This Week in America. Robert, welcome back. Great to have you with us on the show as always.
Awesome. Thank you for having me on board again.
There are so many fascinating things to talk about, and we have a number of questions from listeners. And again, I will remind you, if you go to the website for the show, thisweekinamerica.us, there's a comment column there. You can go ahead and put an email question, and we'll talk about with Robert on the program. So many interesting things to talk about. And I described this journey that you talk about in the Legacy series. It's actually somewhat autobiographical, right? I mean, it's sort of hard to get our arms around that, but that's actually a lot of your experiences.
That's right. Legacy actually is almost a step-by-step process of what I went through after having several experiences and realizing, I have to change my life. I am not living the way I should. Information is coming in how I should do it. This is what's out there that we really don't see. Okay, let's go about it and learn, progress, evolve, and turn into the person that you're supposed to be.
And with all of that, it's all woven together in a very compelling story. It's the Legacy series, 5 episodes. You can find the information at Amazon. You can link on directly to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And Robert's website is rgaetan, GAETAN.com. Information on the book and the series there. We've got some questions from the last visit that Robert was here. This is from a listener in Fort Wayne. What happens when we die? Now, keep in mind all of Robert's background as we're asking and answering. I'm asking, he's answering these questions. What happens when we die? Most of us have, from religion, sort of an idea what's going to happen, but from your perspective, from your world, what happens when we die?
Well, I've had 2 real death experiences in this life, and various out of body. Basically, the death process is a transition. It's a time when awareness translates out of the physical environment or the lower self environment into more of a higher environment. And definitely when individuals have transitioned before and come back, they describe that they have this feeling of peace. That's because they are detaching from this lower environment and entering a higher environment. The process is basically one of letting go of the body, and depending on the situation, at least what I experienced was a numbing of the body. There's no pain, there's no fear, just plain numbing, like when your arm or leg goes to sleep, and then less body motions, of course, as a result, and eventually you are then out of the body. You're looking down, and the next is transition into what I can describe as a blue lobby, where you are in full awareness, but it's an environment where not only do you see just blue everywhere, but you can see yourself from various angles at the same time. Kind of an interesting way to describe it. You don't feel like you are physical as you were, have legs. You really don't have a need to it. You're just floating there. The next thing is you see advanced beings that come to you, spiritual beings. They're surrounded by these beautiful enlightened flames of light. They come and surround you, and then they either return you back to your body if you're supposed to live on, or they take you up into a higher plane through a tunnel of light. And I have experienced that tunnel of light. It's as you progress through each of these stages up into this tunnel, you're becoming calmer. You're adapting to this higher world environment where it's all consciousness. There is no, well, I'm going to get up and walk to the park.
Right.
No, you think of the park, bam, you're there.
There's so many interesting things that go through my mind as you're describing that. As you're going through this transitioning, do you know what's happening at that particular point? And what happens to, is it, okay, now I'm going to go back and I'll be Robert Maxxim again, or do you leave Robert Maxxim behind, family and friends behind, and you're someone else?
Well, in this state, I really had no thought for coming back. I didn't think, well, I have to make house payments, or
Right.
gosh, I got to go to work tomorrow. None of that. It was all like, I am here. This feels great. I feel loved, and I want to move on. Now, in those cases where the reverse happens, you're now going to incarnate. You could play it back in the same sense, and you're going down stages of consciousness until you are in a physical environment again. And of course, when you get to the physical environment, guess who's there to greet you? Your lower self, and all of those memories that you had at one time. So now you went from peace to hell, in a sense.
Okay, yes, yeah. So that's the negative part of that transition. Have you been someone other than Robert Maxxim?
Oh, absolutely.
And you can recall those experiences?
Many I can, and this is all controlled, of course, by what we can call our higher self. It's on a need-to-know basis so that we can overcome certain negative experiences. Of course, wanting to know who you were in the past can actually be the handiwork of your negative self that wants praise and wants fame. So learning about your past is for medicinal purposes only.
Interesting.
It's not for glory making. But yes, I am aware of numerous lifetimes. Many individuals who are renowned, others who you never heard of, and others that are even prehistory.
Will you someday die? I mean, just this is the end. It's not transitioning. It's the end.
For some individuals, that is a possibility. Life is evolutionary. You try to progress. You try to move up into the higher realms. However, individuals who resist that and insist on living wicked, they just get into a downward cycle until there's nothing left. You basically are reabsorbed back into the infinite. So I don't recommend that to anybody. There's no reason why anyone should lose their glorious spiritual future.
Robert Maxxim, our guest on This Week in America. That's Maxxim. The book series we're talking about, which is autobiographical, and we're talking about sections of that as we go with the programs here, is Legacy, the Legacy series. The website is rgaetan, GAETAN.com. You can link on to This Week in America and .us and go directly to that website. You can look for Legacy Series or Robert Maxxim, author, at Amazon and get information there as well. A question from a listener in Baltimore. Why are you here now? What is your purpose?
Well, that comes in at the right moment in our discussion, doesn't it?
Yes.
We are all here to learn and evolve spiritually, hopefully in the correct direction. We incarnate in preset cycles to put into practice what we have learned in higher celestial worlds and in states of being. We want to get a handle on our lower ego self by facing past events and individuals that we have encountered to other lifetimes, we want to take value and recognition from that and eventually use that to evolve from physical dimensions altogether. The life cycle is basically birth or incarnation, and then moments in celestial worlds where we learn some more, we come back to the earth world to practice what we've learned. We fall, we rise, but eventually there is always a path to righteousness, to truth, and to infinity. And that's why we're all here.
Robert Maxxim, our guest on This Week in America. A lot of information there, too. We have to go back and play this program a couple of times to get everything that Robert is talking about there. That was from a listener in Baltimore. The purpose you're here now. I get the impression in listening to you talk, you spend a great deal of time trying to sort things out in past lives, mistakes that might have been made, and trying to rectify those mistakes. Is that true?
That is true. Nothing should go by the wayside. Every thought, every emotion needs to be challenged, need to be taken notice of. Just like the fall of every sparrow is noticed. So every thought needs to be noticed and analyzed and put in its right place. It's interesting that our personal, shall we say, experience on this world, it's almost like an endless commercial loop. The lower self is always saying, try that, try this, go here, do that, feel this way, get anger, get fear, it's constantly. So we have to be aware of that. And instead of just going and shopping for whatever the lower self is telling us to do, we have to be very mindful and say, no, because of this. No, because of this. So you have to have a hefty amount of, shall we say, spiritual learning, not only to be able to discern what you're trying to do and be aware of it, but the science of how it works so you can deal with it, correct it, and move on. And if you do this enough, then before you know it, you begin to change. You feel freer from this environment, which basically means it's working.
What is interesting, and we've done a number of programs, and I'm fascinated by the story, fascinated by the Legacy series. You lead with all of this information and input and discernment that you have. You lead a life like everybody else, right? I mean, you're off to work. You have a family. You shovel snow. You mow grass. You go shop. You eat. You cook. You do everything. So in that sense, it's a normal life. It just what you have maybe more insight, certainly more insight than most of us.
I strive to lead the life that I was meant to, that everyone was meant to. There's nothing wrong with working, cooking, mowing the yard,
right,
washing your clothes, taking a bath. Do the things that are physical. However, we also have to do the things that are spiritual. And that's where this world has taken a downturn in. We have to go back to our spiritual roots, our spiritual basics, and do the right thing with our life. We cannot ignore what we are. And even if we try to ignore it and escape the reality, that lower self and that pressure is going to constantly be there. It's going to be knocking at your door. So wherever you go, whatever you do, you cannot run away from yourself. And there comes a time to every man and woman where they have to stop and they have to face their own monsters from the id.
You mentioned spiritual, and I think in discussions we've had in the past, spiritual and religious are two separate, distinct words, correct?
Some individuals mix it as the same, and
yes,
they're certainly entitled to do that. Personally, I believe that everyone has the right to believe and associate spirituality at their own level, however they grew up, whatever they feel solid and secure in their knowledge today. Personally, I take spirituality as a science. And it's not science where I'm like Einstein developing formulas and in a lab mixing chemicals. No. A science is science that is very simple. It's the understanding of infinite intelligence, how infinite intelligence works. What is the energy behind that? Who are we? How does it how does every atom in our body react to who we are and how that comes into being? What's behind the scene of the solidity that we see? Once you learn those factoids, then you begin to understand more of not only the why are you here, but how. And that how is what's going to get you back to those basic roots of how life should be led. It's almost like jumping in the car without ever taking a driver's test or a course. You don't even know how to turn the engine on. And most individuals on this planet, that's how they lead life. They're born and they think that the only purpose to life is to acquire goods, be the top at everything, become famous, and you don't care about anybody else.
Right.
Give for me as much as I can for me. But then in the end, at the final curtain call, guess what happens? Everything that they achieved, it's gone. Somebody else takes it. So that is the great deception of our physical life. The spiritual life, though, as the great Master Jesus once said, put treasures where? In heaven. Don't put them in this world. You put it in this world, you will be stuck in this world.
Exactly. With this understanding, with this knowledge, does it make you more empathetic?
Love is a very important factor in life. What we call infinite intelligence is, we could say, the God force. Infinite intelligence is what it is. It works, therefore it is true. So no matter what it does, how it works, it's truthful, it's real, it is reality. So life is based on reality, not deception. It is based on understanding of how that infinite intelligence works, where it comes from, how we are part of it, our thoughts. What is energy? How does our mind work? If we are energy, the body, the soul, thought, everything, then you get to understand that the mind is almost like a television set. And it is tuning into different frequency bands. You go to a cable network for news or for a movie, the mind is doing that hundreds of times a second. Whose channels are you picking up? Well, some of those channels are yours. Some of them might be somebody else's, your neighbor's, or it could be from millions and millions of years ago from somebody else. Thought patterns are not destroyed. Energy can only be altered, cannot be destroyed. So sometimes you get thoughts that you wonder where they came from. Well, this is why it's necessary to understand the science so that you know exactly what you're picking up.
So that is sort of the basis for the foundation for what we've been talking about in the series of programs, the basis, the foundation for Legacy, the Legacy series. We had a question from a listener in Chicago. What is infinite intelligence? I think you sort of answered that. So much more to talk about, and energy. I saw a great video that you sent me that I believe you can go to your website and get the information on YouTube. Energy and waveforms, part 1. And we'll talk about that on the next program. A couple minutes left. I'm guessing in talking with you, every day is a learning experience for you. Is that true?
It is. I always see things differently, more detail. Even the things that I'm concentrating on now is energy. And that's why I developed that video. It's how I see energy. And of course, it's constantly evolving. But everything is energy. Unfortunately, science has only, they discovered 16 types of energy: kinetic, nuclear, thermal, light, rest, etc. But these are simply the outcome of a much higher interdimensional force. And those forces come from even higher cycles, fourth dimensional cycles, and those come from even higher cycles, on and on and on into infinity. Where it all comes from is infinite intelligence, the God force. So really, God is everything. Energy is everything. And what we see as the atom, ask yourself, you have an electron flying through the universe, and it's like 5-6 billion years old. Why doesn't it expire? Why doesn't its batteries run out? Where does it get its power from? Where does it get its energy from? A light beam that has been traveling for 16 billion years through the universe. Why doesn't it, poof, expire?
Right.
This energy is that God force that comes from other dimensions. There's no energy created in this dimension. It all comes from higher. And if you look at the universe, it's almost like a matrix. Distance, space, time, it's all in the mind. It doesn't really exist. And when you go to celestial planes, you really realize this because you see it in action. You see how these higher worlds are the foundation for the energies that descend into this plane. And when you are in that celestial environment, your mind, your consciousness is what conceives energy. It becomes creative. For example, I could view a temple on these higher worlds one moment, and then by changing thought, it could turn into something else, and someone else might see it as something else. It is all creative, relative, without time or space. Difficult to explain, but this is at least the next stopping point of where energy comes from. It's coming from these celestial planes. So anything that we have here, if you think of energy, you're thinking of vitamins, food, nuclear plants, hydroelectric plants. That is just the end result of much more minuscule energy patterns and electromagnetic waveforms that are coming from higher dimensions, and we have no clue about them.
We can pick up on that because it is a fascinating topic, and you have this ability to take these really what appear to be a simple mind like mine, very complex issues, and break them down where I can understand exactly what you're talking about. The book series, again, it's excellent. It's called Legacy. It's available all across the country. Information available at Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com. You can link on by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. It's been described as a must-read for every truth seeker. Information at Robert's website, which is rgaetan, GAETAN.com. Robert, it is always a pleasure. We always learn something when you're with us on the program, and we look forward to doing it again. Thank you so much for a very enlightening and fast-moving program. Energy went by way too quickly during the course of this program. We need to slow it down a little bit. Thank you so much for being with us once again.
Thank you kindly.
You're listening to This Week in America. Information on today's guest, Robert Maxxim, and all of our guests at our website, thisweekinamerica.us.